MADISON.
Thank you, sir. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be here with you to help you inspire excellence. And I will tell you that from my experience in working with Doug, Anissa, and the leadership team, I don't really have far to go. Because look at this conference, right? You guys showed up for yourself, the level of education, the sessions, and the venue. I mean, come on, y'all. I woke up to sand art of your logo. That's excellence. So can we give a love deposit to Doug, Anissa, and the leadership team at AARC to the excellent work that they've done for putting on this excellent conference. For those of you who might think that this might be motivational mumbo jumbo, it's not. And I'm not even here to convince you that you need to be excellent or an elite performer in the top 10% of your organization. I'm not here to convince you of that. But what I am here to do is to show you the habits that those who are elite performers and elite performing organizations adopt as North Star guiding principles that allow them to separate themselves from their competitors. And I will tell you, and I'm sure that you know this, as a person who was born with asthma, if there's anyone in this room who needs to be excellent at what they do, it's the people in this room. You're there at the emergence of life when newborns have trouble breathing, like I did. But you're also there when someone's climbing the stairs to death's door to help with those transitions. The work that you do is the very essence of life, because breath is life. And I've learned this profound truth. If you can't breathe, you can't do nothing else. So I applaud you for showing up for yourself to be excellent and furthering your education and sharpening your skills. And what it comes down to when it comes to being elite, to knowing the difference between those who uphold the standards in your industry and those who are just kind of in the pack with everyone else, it comes down to the habits that they embrace and adopt every single day. Because it's the habits that produce the skills that create the success that you want in your life and in your business. Now, how do I know these habits? As Doug mentioned, my consulting firm, the Superstar Academy, works with healthcare organizations, both on the provider side and the industry side. I help them create a better corporate culture to help people work more effectively and achieve their goals faster. And I also work with executives in big pharma and their individual contributors to train them to adopt these habits and to develop the habits and skills that make them elite as individuals and that inspire excellence in their organization to encourage accountability and organizational brilliance. I've won awards for every company I've worked with. I've been an individual contributor. I've led teams, but I'm not here to inspire you with my awards or accomplishments. But I want you to learn from my failures. Because how many of you know those who stand in the spotlight, it's the lessons they learned in moments of darkness that truly made them, that gave them the resolve and the fortitude to achieve on the highest levels. 16 years ago, I woke up on the floor of my home. It was pitch dark. I don't know how long I'd been laying there, but the last thing I remember was daylight. As I rolled over to get off the ground, my face was stuck to the carpet because it was wet where I had been crying. As I tried to push myself off the ground, no matter how many times I tried to kind of lift myself, I just couldn't get up. It's not that I didn't have the physical strength to get up. I didn't want to get up. That night was the lowest and darkest moment of my life. How many of you in this room understand what I mean when I talk about the low, dark moments of life? None of us are immune to the trials of life. My professional life at that time was a mess. After a successful career in the pharmaceutical industry, I'd been laid off, and at this particular time, I'd been laid off for nearly a year. And I realized that by looking at my finances, I was in danger of losing everything that I'd worked hard for. Not only was my professional life a mess, my personal life was a mess as well. My mother, who raised 3 kids as a single mom, the first college graduate in our family, she was my hero. But she suffered from mental illness most of her adult life. In this particular year where I'd been laid off, had no job opportunities, my mom suffered her 3rd and most debilitating mental breakdown. She lost her job, she lost her home, and she spiraled into a lifestyle of homelessness. And this particular night, I didn't know where my mom was. But it's in the low, dark moments of life that you find out something about yourself. It's in the low, dark moments of life that you're introduced to a version of yourself that you cannot achieve by yourself. It's in those moments that you tap into a strength that's uncommon and unknown to you until you reach those perils or those downturns in your life. It's those times when you tap into that power that lies in you that is the source of infinite wisdom, infinite power, infinite strength for you to create the life that you want and overcome any seemingly unsurmountable obstacle. I call it star power. Your star power is your inner ability to create more of what you want by simply doing more with what you already have. When I was on that floor, I had to make a choice that when I got up, that I was going to move. I had to tap into a strength that was greater than me. And it was in those moments when I decided to get up and had the fortitude to get up that I adopted and learned to internalize these 3 habits that I'm going to share with you today. Because it is through this power that you have the ability to create a brand that stands out in a way that projects value and demands attention. And if you're not already thinking of yourself as a brand, like Dr. Pepper, Coke, Vest, Shasta. I guess y'all drank all the nice drinks back in the day. Like we grew up on Shasta. But you are a brand. And you need to start thinking about yourself as a brand. And as you adopt these principles that I'm going to share with you today, you become an influence on the environment that you're in. By tapping into that inner strength and doing more with your natural talent and gifts, you become a light that shines that inspires others to seek the same in themselves. And through that is how you encourage accountability in the workforce and inspire organizational brilliance. And now is the time, unlike any other time, that you absolutely need to do that. Because for the first time ever, we have 5 generations in the workforce. Here they are. Now, for the first time ever, millennials are the largest demographic group in the workforce. Where are my millennials at? Throw your hands in the air and wait. Oh, there's only a few of y'all. Let me tell you, I love you. I've learned a lot from you. And millennials have very much changed the landscape of our workplace with the way that they think. They've encouraged us to broaden how we think about corporate culture because historically, when you come into an organization, there is an expectation from the organization that you will adopt the values and the principles of the organization because at the end of the day, for the patients that you serve, you are the organization. It's not the logo outside on the building. It's not the logo on your shirt. It is you. You are the organization. You are the company. You are the hospital system. You are the healthcare system. It's you. So if you need to take your brand seriously in how you represent yourself because you're a direct reflection on the values of that organization. But thanks to our millennials, our beloved millennials, today there is an equal expectation that when we come into an organization, that the organization embrace the values and the principles that we have for ourselves. You see, diversity and inclusion is more than a term these days. Diversity is getting an invitation to the party. But inclusion is being asked to dance. Today, corporate culture involves not only all of these, but it involves different ways of thinking, a different way of practicing what we do to achieve this level of excellence in our organization. Now, I'm a Generation Xer, and that picture shows that Gen X is still cool. But the reason why this is important, and the reason why you need to adopt these principles and these habits that we're going to talk about, because the baby boomers, by and large, are still in places of executive leadership. They still sit in large part, create the vision for the organization. And traditionally, they've been the only ones responsible for creating the culture and the vision for the organization. But today that's changed. Every single one of you are equally responsible for creating the vision and the principles of the organization and shaping the culture of the workplace. Because how many of you have had an experience where you go into an organization and the culture and the vision that they say they embrace is really not the culture and the vision that the people you work for have created? You don't have to tell on yourself. I saw one hand. She was like, uh-oh, wait a minute. Yeah, oh, my boss is here. So everybody's equally important. So for those of you who are baby boomers and silent generation, how many silent generation makes noise? They're silent. With all these here, there is a combination of personalities, expectations, perspectives that we bring into the workplace. And it's important now more than ever that we set the bar for excellence. So we raise the bar and raise the standard for what we want to accomplish, to set the bar for our corporate culture. Now, for those of you who feel some kind of way about millennials, I got news for you. Generation Z is going to knock your socks off. Generation Z, we don't know very much about how they're going to affect the workplace because they're just now coming into the workplace. They're the ones who are in college today, but they're coming into the workplace. We don't know much about them, but here's what we do know that is kind of scary. Generation Z has never with less than 300 channels on it. Okay, some of y'all are playing, right? So when I grew up, do y'all remember when the TV was like so big it was a part of the furniture in the room, right? And then when the new generation of TVs came out, because the TV was so big, we didn't take it out of the room. We just put that baby right on top of the console. Generation Z. Generation Z, when 9/11 happened, Generation Z were still toddlers. They were prepubescent. They've never been able to walk into the airport without taking off their shoes or getting a dose of full body radiation. That's scary alone. Generation Z. Now, this really freaked me out, Doug. Did you know that Generation Z has no idea why the Dallas Cowboys are such a big deal? I know, right? I know. I see some of you have more in common with Generation Z than you think. My niece, Dara, she came down and she spent the holiday, the 4th of July holiday, with us, and she kept singing this song. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna OMG. She kept singing this chorus over and over again, and I said, Dara, you sound like a broken record. You know, she said, a what? They don't know nothing about it. Generation Z. There are 5 generations in the workplace, all of them coming with different perspectives, different experiences. So now is the time that you need to set a bar of excellence in your place so you can demonstrate what a corporate culture of effectiveness and excellence look like in order to inspire accountability and organizational brilliance. The first habit that helps shape that type of culture is practicing humility. Now, I recognize that this might be counterintuitive for those we're talking about, people who are the best in the world at what they do. But by humility, I do not mean that you dim your power or shut down your voice because someone else is intimidated or they cannot handle your strength. What I mean by humility is being willing to submit yourself to something that is greater than you. That something might be the mission of your organization. For every person in this room, that something should be the patients that you encounter every single day. It's their welfare. It's their well-being as to why we show up every day. Humility allows your mind, your spirit, and your ego to listen. Many times we don't listen to advice that comes our way because we tend to judge the person who's delivering the information. You can't get to a place because of your title or because of your experience or because of your income that you don't listen to people, because in doing that, you miss opportunities to make changes for the better. It's called a hubris. A hubris is an overconfidence in yourself as a result of your achievements. One of my favorite business authors is named Jim Collins. He wrote the book Good to Great. And in that book, he examined the leaders who led those organizations and what was characteristic about them that allowed them to separate from the pack, to become the standard of performance in their particular industry. And of course, he makes note of their excellent business acumen and their skill. But the second thing that he said was core to making the leap from good to great was humility. You can never become too overconfident or think you know it all, because that's how the mighty fall. When it comes to listening and practicing humility, there's many ways to do it. There's just listening. There's having an open door policy that's in writing for your organization. That is going down to meet with those individual contributors, those young professionals just coming into your organization, and asking questions about how they're doing, what their experience is like, what challenges are they having in their everyday lives in the workplace. People bring more of themselves to the workplace when they feel like their voice and their opinion matters. Hubris is a concept that was taught in the Greek tragedies like Icarus, and it was considered a crime, a moral crime, if you will. In 420 BC, the oracle at Delphi proclaimed Socrates to be the wisest man in all of Greece. When the news got back to Socrates, his reaction is not what you may think. He thought it patently ridiculous that the oracle would proclaim him to be the wisest man in all of Greece, because he said, if I'm the wisest, who in the world will I learn from? So he said, I know what I'll do. I'll travel the countryside and go to debate, because that's how they learned back then, by debate. And by debating, you can only learn if you're actually listening to the other person, because you can't take account when you truly don't understand the point. And so after several years of doing this, he went to the synagogues, he went to astronomers, he went to other philosophers to debate with them about their knowledge. And after several years of doing this, Socrates readily admitted that the oracle was right. What he found in these debates were that these so-called intellectuals were so sure of what they knew that they could not know what they did not know, because they didn't listen. You can never get too full of yourself and believe that you have all the answers. Humility is about being ready to admit that you're not the smartest person in the room, because you don't have to be. As you give voice to other people, you allow their brilliance to show. And if you create a culture that builds people and allows their brilliance to come through, you create a culture that inspires accountability and organizational brilliance. The second habit of high-performing organizations, elite organizations, and elite performers is they seek coaching. Anybody who's considered the best in the world at what they do has a coach. Think about it. Who's the best basketball player in the world? LeBron, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry. That's what I'm talking about. All of them had a coach and still have a coach. They didn't get there by themselves. Tom Brady is largely considered the best quarterback that ever played the game, but guess what? He's got a coach. She said, yes, he is. My poor Cowboys. Even Tom Brady's coach, Bill Belichick, largely considered the best NFL head coach ever to coach the game, had a coach. If you go on YouTube and search Bill Gates' #1 watched TED Talk, the central theme of his talk is that everyone needs a coach. Now, let me clear this up. Many of you have had mentors in your career, and we benefit from the great knowledge and relationship that we have with our mentors. How many of you have had a mentor that has impacted your career? Show of hands. Awesome. Most of the hands in the room. I'm not talking about mentoring. You can get the same from one person, but there's a totally different representation of mentoring and coaching. Number one, with mentoring, there's love involved. It takes some level of affection for a mentee to approach a mentor to say, will you mentor me? And ultimately, the mentor has some level of affection for the mentee because they want to see them be successful. They embrace the relationship. With coaching, Tina Turner said, what's love got to do with it? The coach said nothing. Coaching is a brutal sanctuary where candor and transparency is celebrated. A coach is not there to stroke your ego. A coach is there to tell you like it is the way you need to hear it. Sometimes they need to tell you in a way that's rough and abrasive because you need to get shocked out of your patterns of complacency. Sometimes they serve it up in a way that's introspective. So you think about the decisions that you're making. You can throw a rock and hit a coach on social media. There's life coaches, there's health coaches, there's dietitian coaches, there's executive coaches. It does not matter what the title is. What matters is what the coach does. Coaches motivate you to develop skill faster. In the 1960s, there were two German philosophers who examined the relationship that the brain has on voluntary and involuntary movement. What they did was attach electrodes to the subject's heads as they did simple finger movements. And what they found was a precursor spike at about 0.8 seconds before finger movement was recognized. 0.8 seconds. The energy in the brain registered that precursor spike before they witnessed movement in the fingers. They called that time gap readiness potential. What are you ready for as a result of being here for the last 3 days? When you future pace yourself a year from now, when you're back here at this conference, what's going to be different as a result of you being here today? How many of you want to position yourself for new opportunities or promotion? Show of hands. Do you want it faster or slower? Do you want it faster or slower? Maybe I'll get more on this one. How many of you want to earn more money over the next calendar year than you earned in the last calendar year? Show up. Faster or slower? If you want it faster, you need to find yourself a coach. Coaches have the power and ability to cut your time of achieving your goals in half. So maybe I'll illustrate it this way. How many of you are baseball fans? All right, baseball fans. So in professional sports, baseball players, Major League Baseball players, are considered to have the fastest hand-eye coordination of any professional athlete. In fact, the consensus has been over the last few years that the ability to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball is the most difficult thing to do in sports. Not playing golf, not catching a Hail Mary, not skating and shooting, and that to me is hard because I can't skate. But it's hitting a fastball. But think about this. Think of all the things a baseball player, a batter has to do. So the first thing they have to do when they're in the batter's box is judge the angle that the pitcher releases the ball. They have to pick that up. The second thing they have to do is recognize the spin on the ball to tell what type of pitch that it is. The third thing they have to do is gauge somehow the speed of the pitch to know how quickly it's going to get to them. And then the third thing they have to do is envision while the ball is in flight where it's going to be in the strike zone to actually start the swing. They do all of that in 0.4 seconds. Isn't that amazing? You see, because this is conscious activity, this is not the subconscious, which is a whole other topic here. Because this is conscious activity, the brain can only handle one thought at a time. But it does it in 0.4 seconds. Now the question is, how are Major League Baseball players able to cut their readiness potential on the way that they react in half as compared to the average individual? Is it because of their genetic gifting? Yeah, sure. They're much more genetically gifted than many of us in this room. Their bank account says so. But life's greatest potential, life's greatest burden is potential. And if you don't develop that potential, it doesn't matter how much genetic gifting you have. Is it because of their practice and repetition? Sure. But if you practice something incorrectly, you only get real good at being real bad. Just ask anybody that plays golf. The real answer as to how they're able to cut their readiness potential in half is coaching. Every single Major League Baseball player has had a coach. And no matter how much gifting and potential you have, it is the coach that helps you find the right conditions to apply the skill that makes you successful. Coaching hones your instincts. It causes you to trust your instincts. And in the workplace, when we're humble enough to receive feedback from someone who's a coach, that's how we hone our instincts to continue to make excellent decisions. And that inspires people around you to show up, to give their best selves. And the third habit that elite performers in any organization practice that separate themselves from the pack is they live with purpose every single day. Living with purpose means that you don't do things that are easy or convenient. You do the right thing when you need to do it. Living with purpose means you do what's necessary because you understand why it's necessary. You see, many of you who are set goals for yourself or envisioned a larger vision of yourself and what's possible for you in your life and your business here, a lot of times we don't accomplish them because we get wrapped around the axle as to how it's going to get done. I don't have time. I don't know anybody in my organization who's done that. I don't have the right mentor. There's so many reasons why we can't do it. But if the what stays clear to you, if what you want is important enough to you, and you have a reason why you want it that's big enough and important enough, it doesn't matter what you do as long as the why stays in focus, because the how shows up on its own. 16 years ago, when I was on the floor of my home, I had to make a decision. You see, I could conceive losing a house, a car, and all those things because those are material things. I can always get those things back. But I couldn't get my mother back. So when I got myself off the floor, the thing that kept me driving was my why. I wanted to be in a position living 500 miles away from my mom that no matter what happened, she was going to be okay. that I made sure that she had a home to go to and she didn't have to worry about paying bills. Now, when I'm on the floor of my home, broke, busted, and disgusted, that's kind of a big ask. But my reason why I wanted it was important enough to me. So when I got off the floor, fortunately, I got myself a coach. Or should I say my coach showed up. Jonathan Hicks. Jonathan had been a friend of mine, but when I needed it, he gave me coaching. He didn't allow me to feel sorry for myself, and he didn't fall into self-pity like many of our friends do. He said, man, look, I don't know. I can't even talk to what you're going through, but here's what you need to do. You need to rebuild yourself. You need to pour into yourself because you're depleted. Repeat after me. G-I-G-O. One more time. G-I-G-O. G-I-G-O is a computer term that was used back in the 80s by computer programmers. It stood for garbage in, garbage out. You see, if you're around negativity all the time, if you get in your car and you listen to the radio or negative news all the time, you turn on the TV and all you consume is garbage, your perspective is not going to change very much for the better. But no matter what circumstances you're in, if you need to dig yourself out of it, if you need to reconstruct your confidence, your vision, the way that you see yourself, you need to start putting good things in. So he told me to read all I can about people that I admired, inspirational books. People that have gone through different things in their life, started from far worse circumstances than I did, but achieved far greater things. And that served as an inspiration to me that if they could do it, I could do it. But what that also did for me is it tuned my mind to consume and absorb information, massive amounts of information, because through that experience, I became a voracious reader. As I continued to interview for jobs, I couldn't get any opportunities, even in the pharmaceutical industry. I got turned down for selling cars. I don't know what was going on at that particular time, but apparently I was not the right fit. Because how many of you understand it's easier to get a job when you already? I didn't have a job. The only opportunity that I had to interview, seriously, came from a company that was in a little-known space called precision medicine. Back in 2004. A year earlier, a project that took 20 years in healthcare finished called the TCGA, the Cancer Genome Atlas Project. And that project mapped every gene in the human body. Now we know that there's 27,000 genes in the body, but today we only know the function of 250. We knew less back then. So my job, because I had two obstacles standing in front of me. One, I knew nothing about cancer. And two, it required you to go into the operating room, so as brain tumors were resected, as mastectomies happened, as livers were biopsied, you had to collect tissue a certain kind of way and ship it off in order to get this information. I didn't even know if I would pass out if I saw blood. So not only did I read, I did what I could. I started watching surgery on TV. Right? That's how I prepared for this. Wasn't qualified. Every time I went to interview, they could not eliminate me. Eventually, I did get the job. In 2010, the first studies emerged in precision medicine that said treating patients based on their genomic signatures, their genetic expression, yields better outcomes than treating everybody with one-shoe-fits-all approach. Front page of the New York Times. In subsequent years, precision medicine became more of a conversation in healthcare. It became mainstream. They talked about it on Grey's Anatomy, which is one of my wife's favorite programs. She was like, oh, I know what that is. Cover of Time magazine, Newsweek. It's talked about now in every area of medicine that's spreading into neurology, rheumatology, cardiovascular disease. In 2015, President Obama and Joe Biden launched the Cancer Moonshot program, which is the government's commitment to helping grow the area of precision medicine. They donated $4 billion to cancer research in that particular area. Today, I'm an industry expert in precision medicine. I work with pharmaceutical companies to help their executives launch a game plan to commercialize their products and services, and also train their individual contributors, their salespeople, to talk about these very complex things in a very simple way to gain adoption. And I also host the Precision Medicine podcast, where we invite scientists, chief medical officers, other providers who treat cancer patients to talk about the different applications of precision medicine. But you know what? None of that really matters too much to me. I love it. I make a good living at it. But that's not the reason I do it. That's the reason I do it. You see, none of this would have ever come to pass if I didn't have a big enough purpose and reason of why I wanted to do it. I would have never went to Borders Books in Barnes and Nobles to get these cancer books off the shelf because I couldn't afford them and just copy notes out of them. I would have never done that. Why? There's got to be a better way to get a job. But I did it because of that woman right there. You see, my mom doesn't really know what I do. She doesn't care. Through that process, I've been able to make a living to where my mom didn't have to worry about having a home. She didn't have to worry about where a meal was coming from, because I was motivated and had a big enough purpose in my life to make that happen for her. The only thing she cares about is seeing Marlo and Zoe come see her. As you see right there, they got the same hairstyle. So when it comes to inspiring excellence in your organization, it starts with inspiring excellence in yourself. If you embody these habits of elite performers and elite performing organizations, you by yourself can create an atmosphere that encourages accountability, to make sure people show up and bring their best selves into the workforce, and inspires organizational brilliance by allowing them to use that creativity and bring it into the workforce. So to inspire excellence in yourself, I want everyone to take a stand real quick. Stand up in your seats and kind of get solid on the floor. I'm going to give you a daily question. Write it down, post it on social media, tweet it. Hi, y'all. Everyday superstar Ron Madison said it. But write this down. I still have this daily question in my cell phone that pops up at a certain time of the day that reminds me of what I need to do in order to continue to grow this vision and make things happen for myself and my family and the people that I serve. Day by day, as you read this daily question to yourself, it will inspire that vision of the person that you want to be 1 year from now. That question is, and here's what I want you to do. I'm going to demonstrate it for you, and I need you to do it because it's one thing to speak it, but it's another thing to get it into your body. How would the person I would like to be do the things I must do today? Do it with me. How would the person I would like to be do the things I must do today? Louder. How would the person I would like to be do the things I must do today? One more time and let them hear you on the beach. How would the person I would like to be do the things I must do today? I'm Ron Madison. I'm the everyday superstar. I got wisdom for your mind and motivation for that behind. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.